everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you stick around. Today we are going to be talking about all my favorite books for spring, all my spring recommendation, all the books that give me the springy vibes and that I feel personally are perfect for the springtime weather. There's quite a lot to get through, so let's just get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is actually poetry. I don't think I've talked about poetry on my channel yet. And that is the Anything by Emily Dickinson. I adore her poetry. I don't know if you can actually see that cover. Anyway, I adore her poetry. I think she is a spectacular writer. There's also a TV show that's also very good if you're in the mood for it. If you didn't know, Emily Dickinson is a poet from the 19th century. She is very known for her kind of darker poems that handled heavier topics, but she also has some incredible nature poems that I adore and that I think are perfect for the spring. So that's why I'm recommending it. But yeah, she is a nature lover, at least that's what I could tell from reading all of her poems. So if you want a little bit of poetry, I would definitely check out her nature poems. They are perfect. I feel like they're perfect. So yeah. The next book is a children's classic, and that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Anyway, I love this cover so much. Oh, I love this edition. Anyway, this is a children's classic that I feel like everyone recommends during the springtime, and that is due to good reason. In this one, we are following a little girl who is coming over from India, I'm pretty sure it is, after her parents tragically died, and she has to move in with her uncle, who she doesn't know, and she moves to England. So it's kind of a big contrast between India and the moors of England, and she doesn't like it, and she ends up stumbling across a secret garden, and she discovers her love for gardening, and it is so sweet. And also there is a mystery, kind of like a little bit of a mystery aspect, because she gets moved into this huge manor, and there are some cries and howls that she hears during the night, and crying, and all the maids and butlers are acting like she's crazy, but she can definitely hear it. So there's a little bit of that as well. So yeah, it's a great book. I really recommend it during the springtime. It is for all ages. It is a classic for a reason, and it is recommended during the spring for a reason. The next book that I want to get into is kind of also a children's classic, and that is the Little House Prairie books. I adore these so much. Oh, also, the BBC TV show is the only adaptation that I've ever watched, but I think it's really good. So the next book that I'm going to recommend is Anything by Laura Wilder Ingalls. Specifically, I want to recommend the first one, which is called Little House. This is a collection of all of the first 3 novels in that series, but these are by Laura Ingalls Wilder, and they recount her life during the 17th century? Well, during her life during a very rural, I guess, America, and it's about her family just moving along and living literally off nature. And she goes into detail about how they had to make butter, how they had to make just anything that they ever wanted, they needed to make from scratch. And it's not 100% set in the springtime, but there is, especially in the first book, I can always vividly remember this, but I remember in the first book that there is this part where it starts turning to spring, and she starts explaining about how now she can run across the ground without her shoes on, and I don't know, it just really stuck with me as in, okay, they're just running around the forest, it's starting to bloom everywhere. I have a very vivid visual of that, I don't know, and I really, really love it. So the TV show also, again, not the springiest vibes, but the TV show is also very good, I think. At least the first 3 seasons, which is what I've watched. Now, we cannot go into spring classics without mentioning the very esteemed author, Jane Austen, and particularly Emma. I feel like everyone recommends this one for spring, and I am not going to be any different. So sorry if you're looking for something extremely different. But I do love Emma. I feel like you could also put in at least Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. This one, to me, screams the most spring. It could be because of the 2020 adaptation, which I think is phenomenal. I don't know. Other than that, I don't know. This one screams the most spring to me. But it isn't set only through spring. It is, I think, a whole year. Anyway, in this one, if you do not know, we follow Emma Woodhouse, who is a rich, young, and beautiful young lady, and she goes through life kind of meddling in everyone else's business. She plays a lovemaker. She plays kind of like Cupid, and she wants to match certain people with certain people. And she ends up hurting a lot of people during the way, and she doesn't really realize what she's doing is pretty bad, and the only person to call her out on it is Mr. Knightley. This is the original friends to lovers trope, I feel, and you will fall in love with Mr. Knightley. I feel like that is very much a staple for anyone who recommends this book, you will fall in love for Mr. Knightley, which is true. I did. I wasn't expecting to. Let's just get into more children's classics because I'm just a simp for this person. Next, I want to recommend something that is just so wholesome, I feel, and that is anything by Beatrix Potter. This is just the complete treasury of her works. I love this. Like, look. Ugh! If I could get it out, it would be a lot cooler. Ugh. Look at this, it's so cool. Anyway, this is just a collection of all her tales, but anything she has written, I feel, is perfect for spring. I think most of them are set during like the springtime. But if you do not know, Beatrix Potter is a children's author who has written, mostly known for Peter Rabbit, but she's written a ton of different stories about different little animals, which, you know, just screams spring to me. And also the illustrations she did herself, and they are so cool and so sweet. That nearly fell. Love it. Like, and it's basically all little animals getting up to different little adventures, going on little different adventures, or getting up to all sorts of trouble. And I find it so endearing and so wholesome, and it's just perfect for spring. I don't know, it gives me those spring vibes. Okay, this is the last kind of like classic that I'm going to recommend, and that is some fairy tales. I feel like spring is a perfect time for fairy tales, and specifically for Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. I've got this copy. It is a very old copy. So yes, this is my collection of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. The reason I say Hans Christian Andersen first is because, like, for example, the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales, they're grim. The original ones are very dark, and I feel like they're perfect for October, for example, or any of the spookier seasons. But I feel like Hans Christian Andersen, oh my god, that's a very long name. But I feel like his fairy tales, his collection of fairy tales are a lot more sweeter, calmer, and have the more nature feeling. So think The Little Seaman, think Princess and the Pea, think Thumbelina. I feel like Thumbelina is just perfect for spring specifically. But any of those books, those fairy tales to me just scream spring, so that's why. And that is it for kind of classics, but still sticking to the theme of fairy tales. I want to recommend Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This has been one of the most popular books I've seen around BookTube and BookTok, and anyone who's looking for fantasy romance. Everyone also says that it is very much reminiscent of fairy tales, which is true. Now, I am a much bigger fan of her other series. This is, if you don't know, this is a spin-off series of her other trilogy that she released first, which is called Caraval, which is my personal favorite. But that does not take away from the fact that I do also really enjoy these books as well. They're very cool. I still have to read the third one, but this one has the fairy tale vibes. If you're looking for that during spring, this has got it, and it's also got romance in it, and it's so good. It is just so good. I feel like everyone's been a bit annoyed about the third one, but I have yet to read it, so I cannot tell, but I can say that the first two are honestly very good, very sweet. I will say that this has got lyrical writing, it's got purple prose, it does stick to that fantasy quality, fairy tale-esque quality. Now, I do want to point out that this isn't really set at a springy part, like the part of the kingdom that it's set in. I haven't actually given a synopsis, have I? So this book is about a girl called Evangeline who is about to lose the love of her life, who's about to marry someone else, and she makes a deal with a fate, which is kind of like a godlike figure in this world, and you're never supposed to trust a fate, and he says he will stop the marriage and give her love back if he gives her 3 kisses. And it's just a huge journey from there. There's so much that goes into it. It is so much fun, and I do want to point out that it's not really set in a kingdom that screams spring. Like, it is very much a winter wonderland, but it does have so much of the fairy tale retelling that I do still think it is perfect for spring. And Evangeline in itself, like, if you've seen any of her, any of the amazing fan art that people have put out about her, she just, to me, screams spring because she's all in pink, and she's beautiful. But yeah, that's why. Sticking to YA fantasy, I guess, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite book series ever, and that is the Cat's Eye Chronicles. First one being Sora's Quest. These are by T.L. Scheffler, and they are some of my personal favorite books out there. They are hands down my favorite YA fantasy. They're just amazingly good, and they scream spring. This is a quest-centered tale about this young girl called Sora. She runs away from her kind of like privileged life at a manor because she doesn't want to marry who her father wants her to marry. There's a lot more that goes into her, like her escape, but she ends up joining this assassin and this mage who are on the run from a different mage that are trying to kill them, and she goes along this quest. The first one is set in a swamp, so Yes. And she just discovers that magic is real, that there's different races in the world. And it's just so good. It is so good. If you want a slow burn romance, if you want just an adventure quest story, definitely pick it up. It is so, so good. The whole series to me is just perfection. I'm not going to talk. I could talk forever about that book. Now, still in fantasy YA, I'm going to recommend these two books by Renee Ahdieh, and that is The Flame in the Mist and The Smoke of the Sun. It is a duology, so it's short. The reason I'm recommending it is just because, like, honestly, just look at the cover. Does this not scream spring to you? It does to me, which is why I'm recommending it. But also it does have the spring vibe. It's just a fun read, and I feel like it is perfect for the spring. In this one, we follow Mariko, who is a daughter of a samurai. Yeah, the daughter of a samurai. So she is set to marry someone who she did not choose, and on the journey to get to this place where her betrothed is, her and her traveling companions get kidnapped, and she ends up infiltrating this clan, pretending she's a boy when she's a girl, and there's a little bit of romance there, and it's so good. It's also very good, and I do recommend it a lot because I feel like Renee Ahdieh is mostly known for The Wrath and the Dawn, which is my favorite, and she's also really known for The Beautiful, The Damned, and The Ruined Quartet, which again, also very good, but this one also very good. And then the last fantasy book I want to recommend is kind of a classic, I guess. It is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. I adore this so much. If you've seen the movie, also amazing movie, but the book is also very good. I feel like this is just a classic fantasy in which we follow mainly Buttercup, who is set to marry the prince, and she doesn't want to. She's got a lost love, and because she's in love with someone else who died years ago, and she is also kidnapped from a different country, and there's pirates, and there's rodents, huge rodents, there's a swamp also, there is knights and fights, there is musketeers, not really musketeers, what are they called? There's giants, there's just like a little bit of everything, and I love it so much. It is one of those classic quest-like fantasy novels. So good. I love it so much. I feel like everyone should at least watch the movie. But yeah, the book is also very good. If you're a fan of Tress from the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, which I feel like has been very popular recently, during the last year it was very popular at least, he based the main character from that book off Buttercup, and kind of a retelling of this. It's heavily inspired by this is what I'm trying to say. So if you liked that, you'll most likely like the source material. I personally do. Now let's get into more contemporary reads. Like, the first one that I want to say is Noah Barleywater. Barleywater Runs Away by John Boyne. John Boyne is mostly known for The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and he's recently released a book which has gotten quite a few people to talk about it, but this is one of his middle grades, and it's also very good. It is about a little boy who runs away from home, and he stumbles across this toy shop, and then the toy shop owner, who's also the one who makes all these fantastical toys, kind of starts telling him about his life, and Noah in turn starts telling about his life and why he's run away, and it's just a sweet story that I feel is perfect for the spring. There's nothing really springy about it, really, but I feel like it's a perfect read for the spring. It's got a little bit of magic in it, but not too much, and it's just a sweet story about a boy who's growing up, who's scared of growing up, and I just love it. I love it so much. So the next book that I want to recommend, or the next series that I want to recommend, is The Twins at St. Clair's by Enid Blyton. This is a 6-book series, but they're very short. They're like literally 150 pages each. Like, they're not that long, and they are very quick to get through. We follow two twins. They're called Isabella and Pat O'Sullivan, and they go to, and when they do not go to their preferred school, they have to go to St. Clair's. They're not too happy about it. So if you liked Wild Child, that film with Emma Roberts, you'll like this. It's kind of got the similar vibes to it. It is just these two girls learning how to form friendships, tone down the snobbiness, I guess, learn to accept that this is where they're going, and try to make the most out of it. But they end up finding friends, and they end up liking it. I love it so much. It is so much fun. We only have 2 more books to talk about, and they are graphic novels and manga, basically. So the first one that I want to recommend is a manga, and that is Al Haru Ride, which literally translates to Blue Spring Ride. So bring in the title. It's perfect. It is by Io Sakisaka, and it is so cute. It is one of my favorite mangas out there. It is so good. I feel like everyone knows about this, at least if you're in the manga community. It is one of those classics that everyone reads, but it is a contemporary set in high school, and it is about this girl here who is kind of faking her way through high school because she She feels like people won't accept her if she's true to how she really acts, so she acts very different to how she really is. I don't know if that made sense, but hopefully it did. And her name is Futaba, and she ends up like finding again her old crush from when she was a lot younger, who is this boy right here, and he pretends that he doesn't know her, and she's kind of confused why. It is just a very sweet love story throughout the whole books. I think, how many is there? I think there's like 12 of these, but they're very quick, they're very addicting, they are so good, and they are just perfect for spring, and I feel like they're perfect for spring. I'm just realizing that I did not include any romance. I like barely include romance, but most of the books have romance in them, so I feel like that counts, right? Anyway, the last books that I want to set to recommend are Lou by Julian Neal. These are a graphic novel series. They are originally in French. I don't know if they exist in other languages, specifically English, but I still wanted to talk about them because they are some of my favorite graphic novels, and there's like 8 in total, and they're very short. Like, you'll get through them very quickly. And they're just so sweet. I love them so much. We basically see this little girl whose name is Lou, follow her as she grows up. There's a little bit of a sci-fi twist at the ending books. It's very weird, but I feel like it works. But we mainly just watch this little girl grow up and her struggles throughout her teenage years, and just in general that I feel like she's very relatable in that sense. The reason I'm recommending it is just because, to me, looking at the books, I feel like I like the theme of children growing up during the springtime, like children finding out and being more confident in themselves and all those kind of types of stories, and I feel like Lou fit that criteria perfectly. And I do feel like it's a great series to binge during spring. It doesn't only get set in spring. I just wanted to include it in this list, and I do think it is very fun. Let me know if there's some English translated books. I haven't actually looked into that. I read them in French. But yeah, so those are all the books that I wanted to recommend for spring. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys recommend for spring. What gives you the springy vibes? What books have you been reading? What books do you love to read in spring? What recommendations do you go off of? What makes a spring book to you? I kind of want to know, because I feel like, to me, it's fairy tales, it is nature kind of loving books, and it is also little kids, kind of middle grades. I feel like a lot of middle grade. But anyway, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.